Bobby's gone through a few rough periods
Oh
with
yeah,
like with drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. So,
totally. Yeah.
and just everything else involved. I mean, that's the beautiful roller coaster of who he is, and a lot of great comedians seem to be that way. So I
Yeah.
wonder what the connection there is. You think some level of crazy is required for comedy,
Yeah.
or like at some point
Yes.
on a scale of 1 to 10, how much crazy do you have?
In some ways, a 10. And in other ways that I think, uh, in other ways, sort of functionally, I'm like a 2 or a 3 because I don't know.
Oh, so
I'm from Canada, and
yeah.
I try to just keep things very even keeled. My
Mhm.
parents are Italian; they're from Italy, and they grew up during World War
Mhm.
II, and they're very you know uh, simple outlook on things. They're complex, incredible, classy people who are very simple when it comes to a lot of stuff, and I think just being a sort of a at heart kind of a timid Canadian coming out here years ago as a kid, it was all I could do to just keep everything super normal. And then I sort of was able to settle into that as a lifestyle.
But you love the idea of being an actor. Like who you mentioned John Candy and Planes,
Planes,
Trains, and
Trains, and
Automobiles.
Automobiles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite movies. You said
Yeah.
it's one of yours. What do you think that makes that movie work? What do you what and when you talk about enjoying that movie, do you enjoy just the raw comedy, or do you enjoy like the friendship and the love that's there, even though on the surface it doesn't make any sense that there should be a friendship there?
I mean, that's such an important element to that film. But, as a kid, I just loved the comedy.
Yeah.
And then it's been a nostalgic favorite of mine. Like, it's my favorite movie. But it's also, it's just legit my favorite movie because as you get older and you start watching it, you realize it's what John Hughes is the filmmaker and what John Candy, particularly, and but also Steve Martin are doing in the film that makes it such a work of art, which is loneliness is there in every moment of that film. And John Candy he embodies Del Griffith, his character in the film. He Del Griffith is a lonely guy, and John Candy, but Del Griffith is also a very friendly guy and a shower curtain ring salesman and knows everybody in the Midwest and runs around to motels and has meaningful conversations
Yeah.
with the guy. Evening Gus,
Yeah.
whoever he's talking to. Um, but there's loneliness there all the time, and this is a character. The film is filled with loneliness, and it's not until the second to last scene when he's at the train station. Del, what are you doing here? I thought you were going home. What are you doing here? That's a very good Neil Page from the movie. Thank you. That's when you realize how
We'll
lonely
add
he is.
applause in post. Yeah.
Cheers. That's when you realize how lonely he is, and I think that's the element from the film that. I mean, look, nowadays I feel like and I've been saying this for a long time, but John Candy would have won an Academy Award hands down for that film. It's just they didn't do that with comedies back then until
Yeah.
the year after that movie came out with Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah. And then I mean, still, comedies don't get respected enough. Robin Williams, I guess he got an Oscar for
Goodwill Hunting.
Goodwill
Yeah.
Hunting. Jim Carrey, did he ever get an Oscar?
I don't know. I don't believe so. Oh.
Yeah, they don't get, you don't, yeah, well, but that's not even, if he did, you wouldn't be for comedies. It's just, I mean, there's some things that are, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Would you even put that as I guess it's a comedy.
Yeah, I mean
But
it's
there is a loneliness and depth that permeates the whole movie
yeah.
that ultimately, and it's a happy ending, which is hard to kind of.
It's a happy ending only because in the last moment of the movie, John Candy puts on a brave face, even when he's got no one.
No.
And he's there seeing Neil Page's entire family on Thanksgiving. And he forces a smile, which is literally the last frame of the movie. And I've said before, if you're not reduced to just a sobbing pile of meat at the end of the movie, then you are not human.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a happy ending. It's a happy ending, even though it's a sad
so
sad
much
character.
loneliness in the world. I was just in Vegas. I went to a diner at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and there's a waitress that was empty. As a waitress, that was the sweetest, kindest human being. Kept calling me sweetheart and all that kind of stuff. Hun. And then after I ate, she sat down and just talked to me a little bit. And it was because there was nobody there. And it was just so much sadness in her eyes. I don't know, but it's also so much love, like that sweetheart. I mean, it reminded me kind of the John Candy performance because at first, because I was like reading a pretty dark book about Hitler. So I was a little bit frustrated that she kept talking to me because it was like it was almost like the same way that John Candy is. It's annoying a little bit, right? But then very quickly I opened up to like, well, there's a kind human being, and there's like that human connection superseded everything else, and I don't know, it was just beautiful, and I think John Candy captures that really well, which is like the connection with other human beings. Sometimes we pull away from that because have a busy life full of stuff to do. As Steve Martin's character kind of characterized, he's like a marketing exec or something like that. But if you just pause and notice others, you can really discover beautiful people.
Totally. Everyone's got their story. And, you know, Candy as a person, I've never met the man. But he's the kind of guy that, you know, he could just walk up to, back in the day, I would imagine he could walk up to just about any house, at least in Canada, knock on the door and you'd invite him in for dinner. You know what I mean? So yeah, you know, as you're talking about, you know, putting a book down and talking to someone for a while, even though you'd really like to read your book, it's like, it's that sort of thing that Candy's character in the movie sort of does that, like Johnny Appleseed. Just, you realize he's just going around making people smile, you know, and Neil Page is hanging with this guy, so frustrated. He's so exhausting, and his big underwear in the sink at the hotel and everything. And by the end of it, he loves this guy, you know? So it's a good and a bad thing that you didn't take that waitress with you on a trip, maybe road trip up to Reno.
She's out shopping right now. We've been having sex multiple times a day ever since.
Oh, that's nice. That's lovely. How cute.
I think I'm sure she's married and happily and has many grandchildren. Okay. And plus that movie's on Thanksgiving, I think, right? Or
yeah, that's right.
Thanksgiving. So like Thanksgiving just embodies that. Forget about the busyness and the whatever the career you're chasing in life, and just take a pause and appreciate the people you love.
Just be with your family. Yeah.